Hi friends, I'm Felicia. Welcome back to my channel. To be honest, I'm kind of having a hard time sitting down to film this video. For those that may not know, one of our dear members of our booktube community, Angela from Coffee and Chapters, she passed away suddenly a week ago, and she was one of my dear friends. We have actually met in real life, and it's been a hard week in that respect to just deal with that loss. It's been hard, but it's also been good. Angela was a Christian, and I am too, and so I have a lot of comfort in the fact that I know that I'll see her again in the next life, and that brings me a lot of comfort, and I know that she's in a better place. So yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, acknowledge that and say something, because she was a dear friend of mine, and it kind of feels weird to sit down and film a video and then to know that this video will go up and she won't watch it. And she was such a faithful friend, and I just loved interacting with her on booktube, but life is just unexpected, and you lose people, and that's just a part of life. And yeah, not quite sure where I was going with that. I guess I just wanted to acknowledge that in this space. And yeah, if you want to talk, if you were also friends with Angela and want to talk about her in the comments or chat or message me on Twitter, I'm totally open to that. I would love to. I just want to acknowledge my friend's life, and yeah, I don't know. So we started this video off a little bit sad, but it's good. And yeah, so I feel a little bit weird is my point in saying all that. I just feel a little bit weird, feel a little bit off. But so today I want to do my my October and November wrap up. So I have 9 books to talk about, or 8 books and a short story. But we will just get started. So I think it was in September I read To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han, and I wanted to I was reading that series again with my Reads with Friends group. So that's Shannon, Lauren, and Jen, and we chat about books on Facebook together, and it's a lot of fun. And so we read through the series together again, and I read the first book in September, and then I finished books 2 and 3, P.S. I Still Love You, and Always and Forever, Laura Jean. I finished those in October. Yep, I finished them in October, and I really enjoyed that reread. I have read that series before a couple years ago, and I also watched the movie on Netflix, and that was very cute. And I just heard that they confirmed the next movie, so that's exciting news. I really enjoy that Netflix is doing all these chick flicks that feel very much like movies from when I was a teenager, like from the early 2000s. Like, that was just prime time for romantic comedies, and I'm excited that they're kind of coming back. I don't know, I didn't enjoy the books as much as I did the first time, especially the third book. I remember the first time I read it, I was very happy with the way the series ended, but the second time around, I just wasn't. Mute this if you don't want to be spoiled if you haven't read them yet, but I just am not a fan of Laura Jean and Peter. I don't know anyone actually that is. I think everyone wants Laura Jean to be with John Ambrose, and yeah, I don't like the way he treats her. He kind of treats her like, I don't know, like she's his possession, and I don't like it. I really loved Peter in the movie, like, oh my goodness, so cute, but in the book I just can't stand him. But yeah, so I finished reading that series, and I was listening to them on audio, and the audiobook narrator was good. I forgot to write down the names again of the narrators, but the narrator did a good job. And then moving on to another series that I was reading on audio, and that's The Themis Files by Sylvain Neuvel. And I read the first book earlier in the year, and then I kind of took a break. And then what I ended up doing now was I was listening to a Laura Jean book, and then I listened to a Themis book, and then Laura Jean, Themis, Laura Jean. I think that's how I did it. So I finished up 2 series back to back, so that felt good. And so the books 2 and 3 in that series are Waking Gods and Only Human. And those audiobooks are fantastic. They're narrated by a full cast, and it works really well for the format of how the story is told, because it's told in like a interview format. So the dialogue is going like back and forth the whole time, and there's like no descriptors or anything. It's just dialogue, and so that works really well for audio. I really loved it. If you like the movie Arrival, it kind of has a similar theme in that there's an invasion and you're just trying to figure out why. The aliens are not communicating with the people in terms of what they're doing there, and so it's very much, you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know what their motive is, what their purpose is for being here, and it's, I really enjoyed the series. I think book 2 was actually my favorite, which like almost never happens. You know about second book slump, and for me, book 2 was my favorite one. It just felt like the invasion story that I always want to read. I do enjoy a good invasion story, and I feel like especially book 2 was just a really good invasion story. So if you're a fan of like alien invasions and like military strategy and stuff like that, I think this book was very well done, and like the characters were all really interesting, and I'm just a fan. And I was very proud that it's by a Canadian author. So I would very much recommend those if you're looking for good audiobooks or good sci-fi series. Very good. And then another sci-fi book that I read, also because of Arrival, is The High Crusade by Paul Anderson. And this is a classic sci-fi. I think it was written in the 60s. And I found out about it because I wanted to read books like Arrival after I saw the movie Arrival. And this book is set in medieval England. And it starts off with an alien ship landing and aliens descending out of the ship. And the Englishman, well, I don't want to spoil it. It's about an alien invasion, kind of, but then also reversed. Just, I don't like want to give away too much about the plot, but the High Crusade in the title should maybe give you more of a clue than it gave me what the plot's about. I mean, this is a very obscure book. There's not very many ratings on Goodreads. You can only buy it on Kindle. It's not in print anymore. And it's I don't I don't know what I want to say, because I really didn't enjoy it at all. It was very dull. It was very unrealistic. And like, I know sci-fi is usually unrealistic, like the things that happen that would never happen in real life, but just some of like the whole plot of this book is just not plausible at all in the way that things played out. If you have further questions about that, maybe you can ask me, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's not, I didn't enjoy it at all. So it took me months to read it because I just didn't care. And so finally, during the last Deweys in October, I just forced myself to finish it. And that was the only book that I finished during Deweys, I think. I don't even remember what the other thing that I read during Deweys was. I know I didn't read all day, but I finished that, and that was my goal. So I accomplished that at least. Then I have been wanting to reread the Remnant Chronicles forever. I have not read the third book yet because I wanted to reread the first and the second book and then read the third book. And that was like 3 years ago, so I needed to reread books 1 and 2. So I reread The Kiss of Deception. I also reread Morrigan, which is the short story, prequel story to this, but like don't read it before you read this, I don't think. But yeah, I absolutely love this series. It's one of my all-time favorite fantasy series, and it's very much also like the political intrigue. It's about a princess who's in an arranged marriage, and on the day of her wedding she runs away, and the prince that she was going to marry and an assassin from an enemy country both come looking for her. And so the I guess the gimmick of the first book is that there are chapters from the perspective of the prince and the assassin, and you don't know which male character is the assassin and which one is the prince. And so it's very interesting trying to figure out who is who. And I remember the first time I read, I was shook during the reveal, and yeah, upon reread, I loved it just as much. I maybe loved it even more the second time. There's just so much going on in these books, and I love the female characters and the relationships. There's such an emphasis on female friendships in this book, which is just very refreshing. Absolutely love it. And I'm in about a third of the way through the second book, and I'm still loving that one just as much as I did the first time. So I highly recommend this series if you're a fan of young adult fantasy or even adult fantasy, because it's just really good. And then Morrigan is just a prequel story that has some of the, I guess some of the myth of the religion in this series. But yeah, I listened to that on audio. That was very good. The narrator was someone that I like. I don't remember their names, but the female narrator was someone that I enjoy. Wish I could remember her name. You can look it up. It's fine. She was good. Anyways. I feel so bad. I always think about Jen from... What is her channel name? She used to be Today in Jen's Library. I think now it's Jen Talks Audiobooks. And she always is very a stickler for saying the narrators' names, because they deserve that acknowledgement. And I totally agree. And then I just forget to write them down, and I don't want to look it up while I'm filming. Like, that's bad. I'm going to try to do better, guys. I do love my audiobooks. They're totally saving my reading, like, big time. So I should acknowledge the audiobooks narrators, because they're saving me every day. Okay, but then the next book that I read, I listened to an audio, and that was Bird Box by Josh Mallerman is his name. Again, I don't remember the narrator, but she was very good. I didn't actually think that I would ever read this book. Like, it sounded like a thriller, but then I heard people... It was published a few years ago, but then it kind of had a resurgence in popularity because now Netflix is making a movie with Sandra Bullock as the main character, and I saw the trailer for that, and I don't know why the trailer made me want to watch the movie, because it looks scary. But then I wanted to read the book because I really wanted to know, and the premise did sound interesting. So basically the premise is there is something happening in the world that when people see it, they go crazy and they basically end up committing suicide every time. And so people start walking around outside with blindfolds. They're blacking out their windows. They're like not looking outside. And so I was very intrigued how this book was gonna, like, how this story would handle that. Like, how do you navigate life without being able to look outside and knowing that there's something out there and you can't see it? And then also, it starts off with this mother and her 2 4-year-old children. They're taking a trip down the river. And that was the thing that got me, like, how do you take a trip down a river and navigate it without sight? And so it actually turned out being really good. I enjoyed it. It was a bit gruesome at times because people are killing themselves. And sometimes the way that they killed themselves was described and it was a little bit gory. But the way the story was crafted and the way Josh Malerman told the story was one of my favorite devices, where you start off in one place and then you go back and hear part of the history, and then you come back to the present, back to the history, and there I think were 3 points. Yeah, so 3 different spots that he would go back to and then keep telling from there, if that makes sense. And then it all, you know, comes together in the end, and I just really enjoyed it. The end, I was pretty shook at the end. I was listening to it at work and the phone would ring and I would just be like enraged that the phone was ringing because I needed to know what was happening. And I have to pause my book to answer the phone. So I was really into it. So yeah, like maybe I want to start reading thrillers, but like more psychological thrillers, not like people being weird thrillers, if that makes sense. I don't know. Probably doesn't make sense. If there are books like Bird Box, let me know. Like, it wasn't overly gruesome, just a little bit. I can't take like excessive gore, so I don't know. Let me know if that made any sense at all. The last book that I finished in November was The Little Book of Huga by Meek Viking. I don't know if that's how you say his name. I'm obsessed with the concept of Huga. That's basically how I've been living my life, and I didn't know until I heard about the concept a few years ago. Basically, it's the Danish. It's a Danish word concept, and basically it would translate to cozy togetherness. And so it's the idea of just creating your surroundings in your life to invite just time to be cozy and still. So there's like a lot of candles and warm blankets and like textures, very important, and like feeling and like eating comforty foods and all of that. And I mean, I really enjoyed this book. It's not a book that you want to like sit down and just read straight through. Like, I would read a few pages before bed, and that was, I think, perfect. It does kind of feel repetitive, again, if you're sitting down and reading a huge chunk, because by the end, I just kind of wanted to be done with it. So then I read like 3 or 4 chapters in a row, and then it kind of did feel repetitive. But yeah, I would recommend it if you want just like a nice light thing to read before bed. And it's a very cute, and like, it's a very beautiful book. Like, there's just beautiful photography all throughout, and like, you really just feel cozy when you're reading it. So if you like coziness, I would recommend this book. And those are all of the books that I read in October and November. If you have any thoughts about them, let me know. Yeah, have you ever even heard of The High Crusade or Paul Anderson? Because I never had, but apparently he was very prolific. But yeah, so that's all I have for today. So until next time, so long and thanks for all the fish.